As you're about to see, the ocean is a dangerous, creepy, and downright strange place. Underwater explorers have found time and time again that as soon as we pierce the surface, we are in for one hell of a fright. From mysterious underwater pyramids to a train graveyard, eerie sculptures, and perhaps even the forever sought-after lost city of Atlantis. Hold your breath, because we're diving deep into the hair-raising surprises that hide on the sea floor. To kickstart our underwater journey, we're heading over to, of all places, New Jersey. It's here, disguised under nearly 90 feet of water, that two eerie locomotives sit, slowly being swallowed up by the ocean. These trains were lost close to 170 years ago in the 1850s, and had hibernated there discreetly until they were found, completely by accident, by a man named Paul Hepler back in 1985. Thankfully, there were no traces of humans found down there, but hey, you never know. The locomotives appear to be a rare Planet-class 222T models, and weighed about 15 tons each, so it's no wonder they sank to the ocean floor. The weirdest thing about this discovery was there were no historical records of them being lost. In fact, there are no records of the engines being built at all. Did someone say cover up? The question, of course, is how did they get down there in the first place? What do you think? Share your theories in the comments below. Who here has seen the Alien films? You know, the ones with those chest-bursting creatures that gave us all nightmares? Give this video a quick like if you have. Did you ever wonder how the filmmakers came up with the idea of parasites using the human body as a host? The idea is creepy, no doubt, and what's even creepier is the fact that it's based on something that already exists. This, ladies and gentlemen, is an underwater demon known as Phronima, a miniature parasitic beast that has all kinds of nasty tendencies. These small creatures have giant razor-sharp claws, which they use to lovingly latch onto vulnerable and innocent barrel-shaped zooplankton, also known as salps. Once they've latched on, the Phronima then climb inside, dig themselves a little cave, and make the transparent zooplankton their temporary home. Now surrounded by a protective layer, the parasites can safely float around the deep open waters of the ocean in search of their next meal. While these guys might be teeny tiny, growing to the size of just 12 to 42 millimeters, under a microscope, they're as scary as anything we'll ever see under the ocean. We all know about Stonehenge, right? Well, what if we told you that there was another one hiding under the frigid waters of Lake Michigan? That's right. Back in 2007, a group of scientists from Northwestern Michigan University College, led by Professor Mark Hawley, were using special sonar technology to scan the floor of Lake Michigan. They were looking for shipwrecks, but what they found turned out to be far, far more valuable. At a depth of about 40 feet into the Grand Traverse Bay, they came across a few unique findings. Sure, they uncovered a handful of sunken boats, cars, and even a Civil War-era pier. But none of those items compared to what they found next. We're talking, of course, about the series of monoliths, arranged in a Stonehenge-like manner. We have enough trouble figuring out how Stonehenge in the UK came to be. So how on earth did ancient civilizations build another one underwater? As if that weren't enough to confuse the heck out of any scientist, they also discovered a boulder thought to be 10,000 years old, with a prehistoric carving of a mastodon slapped across it. Whatever's going on down in those waters, we'll be staying far away. Alright, we couldn't delve into the creepy and mysterious works of our oceans without touching the Bermuda Triangle. That'd just be rude. It's not just one object that sits abandoned underneath this frightening stretch of ocean, but hundreds, if not thousands. It's estimated that around 75 planes and 100 or so ships have vanished there, but some say that it could be significantly more. This isn't a scary object per se, but a frightening vessel to take down vehicles and whisk them away into oblivion. Nothing is found, and that's why it's so scary. So what's the deal? Well, the geometry and size of the triangle is constantly changing, making it difficult to track. We do know that it stretches from Bermuda to Florida and down to Puerto Rico, smack bang in the middle of hurricane zone. For extra intimidation points, it's situated over the Gulf Stream, which can cause huge storms of its own and sweep away any sunken debris into God knows which direction. The triangle's most famous aircraft disappearance was Flight 19. Within that, 5 separate U.S. Navy torpedo bombers who complained about their compasses failing went suddenly off-grid, never to be seen again. When you think of underwater cities, what comes to mind? No, not Aquaman. We're referring, of course, to Atlantis, the ever-elusive lost city. hiding, apparently, somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Make no mistake, hundreds of thousands of people genuinely believe that Atlantis exists. Even maps have been drawn of it. Still, it remains a rumor. You know what else was a rumor? The ancient city of Heraklion. Up until this underwater oasis was discovered in the year 2000, it was nothing but a passing mention in a few rare inscriptions and ancient texts. But then, an archaeologist named Frank Gaudio, with the help of some advanced underwater screening technology, managed to find it 4 miles off the coast of Egypt. Littered across the seafloor was 64 ships, close to 700 anchors, more gold and coins than you could ever imagine, and intimidating statues, towering a whopping 16 feet tall. If this place is uncovered, surely it's only a matter of time before we come across Atlantis as well, and that's an intimidating thought. Next up, let's swivel our attention to one of Mother Nature's most obscure, frightening phenomena. It's called the Ice Finger of Doom. At first glance, it looks like some kind of tornado, right? But that's no Oklahoma twister, folks. This event actually occurs under the sea, where a powerful column of ice forcefully drives its way down to the ocean floor, scattering any sea life in its path. It's as dangerous as it sounds, freezing and destroying everything around it. But how does this icy phenomenon work? It all comes down to temperatures. More specifically, when the temperature at the ocean floor is warmer than it is on the surface. Bear with us. It's caused by cold, sinking brine, which is denser than the rest of the seawater, usually in the polar regions of our oceans. That sinking brine forms a brinacle, which is like a hollow tube of ice, and it continues to do so when it contacts warmer water below the icy surface. Think of it this way. The hollow tube transports the freezing conditions from above the surface to the sea floor. Not even the starfish can escape. Okay, for something a little less sinister, take a look at this foreboding piece of machinery. It's an impressive image for sure, but what exactly is that giant thing that we're staring at? From first glance, it appears like part of a rocket engine or a huge exhaust piece. It certainly looks man-made because of its metal structure, but with all of that moss covering it, it's caused the scientific community to scratch their heads a bit. If it is indeed part of a rocket, we wouldn't be surprised if it was the Rocketdyne F-1 rocket engine that helped propel spaceships to the moon. Alas, some people say it's photoshopped, and some say it's from a movie called Underwater. But we'll let you draw your own conclusions. There are plenty of theories about how our next featured object ended up underwater, but none are as pronounced as the idea that suggests striking an iceberg caused it to sink. You know what we're talking about, right? Good old RMS Titanic, one of the most famous and most tragic ship disasters that modern civilization has ever seen. At the time of its 1912 maiden voyage, all the headlines and speculation were positive. The world couldn't wait. But as we all know, it did indeed sink. What we didn't know, however, until 1985, when it was actually found at these coordinates, was that it split into 2 pieces. Sure, we're aware of that now that we've all seen James Cameron's Tearjerker, but until the mid-1980s, for over 70 years, people assumed it went down relatively peacefully in one solid piece. When it was officially found, partially disintegrated, it was a huge shock. It indicated that the event was far, far more violent than we first thought. The explorers also found some objects of significant value, though, like this 18-karat gold and diamond filigree ring, and this gold ribbon brooch encrusted with diamonds, for example. We know about the Great Pyramids of Egypt and the Chichen Itza over in Mexico, but there's actually another pyramid that flies under the radar. In fact, it flies under the surface of the water as well. We're heading over to the southern coast of Yonaguni, Japan. That's right about here, where a mystifying, eerie site was discovered in 1995 by a diver who ventured just a little too far off the Okinawa shore. As we'd all be if we were in his flippers, when the diver found what appears to be an underwater pyramid within a large underwater city, he was flabbergasted, shocked, and a little frightened. So what's hiding down there exactly? A bunch of submerged stone structures, that's what. Their locations vary at depths from 100 feet to just 20 feet, and they feature sharp 90-degree angles, with monoliths arranged in what can only be described as a stumpy pyramid. These are thought to be the ruins of Japan's answer to Atlantis. Although scientists don't believe that it was always underwater, the consensus is that the ancient city once thrived on land, but it was sunk by an earthquake about 2,000 years ago. Imagine a river flowing at the bottom of the ocean. Sounds crazy, right? That wouldn't make any sense. Well, consider your minds blown, because it really does exist. In 2016, a team of researchers from Leeds University, working in the Black Sea, that's here by the way, discovered currents of water flowing along the seabed with a force of more than 350 times as powerful as the River Thames in London. How on earth is this possible? The scientists, using an underwater robot, discovered that the river flowed through a channel dug into the seabed, which was up to 115 feet deep in various places. With its own layer to maneuver through, it could flow at whatever speed it wanted. For a touch of perspective, if that same river were found on land, it would rank 6th in terms of total volume that flows through it. 6th out of every river on the planet. Who's got time for a bonus entry? They're perhaps the most unique underwater structures out there, and believe it or not, you can actually see them for yourself. Take your pick from an underwater house, a guy sitting on a couch, unique circles of humans, an old VW Beetle, and plenty more. The catch here, unfortunately, is that there isn't much mystery to these objects. As weird and wonderful as they might be, they're actually part of a museum near Cancun. Still pretty cool though, right? Which of these stood out to you the most? Which one will you tell your friends about?